Hey guys, I'm the Metal Jesus. Now recently I upgraded my MAME arcade cabinet here with all new hardware and awesome front-end software from Launchbox. If you haven't checked out Launchbox, you should definitely do it because it's killer. And in doing so, I also wanted to put on this machine some games I haven't played before and check them out. Well, in this video, I'm going to show you 10 of the arcade hidden gems I found. I think you're going to love it. Let's take a look. Alright, we're going to start this video off right with a game called Boogie Wings. Love that name, but it's also known as the Great Ragtime Show in Japan. As you can probably guess, this is a side-scrolling shooter by Data East, and it was released in 1992. Now this game takes place during World War I, and it really reminds me of that game Steel Empire on the Genesis. Does it look kind of familiar? Because it has a similar design to it. In this game you fly a biplane, but what makes it unique is the hook that you're dragging that allows you to pick up bombs and other objects and then throw them at your enemies, causing even more damage. Another unique aspect is when your plane gets shot down, your pilot jumps out and then it turns into a run and gun on foot. Now this is where the game's gonna really remind you of Metal Slug in that you can jump into other vehicles, you can jump on horses, continue the battle on the ground. This is a really colorful, chaotic, and just tons of fun. This is a great hidden gem. Oh boy, here's a weird one. Okay, so this is called Monster Farm Jump. Now, it was released by Tecmo in 2001, and it's really bizarre, but it's super fun. You control this bouncing creature, and your main goal is to get from one end of the level all the way down to the other side, without running out of time or losing all of your lives. Now, at first glance, this seems like it'd be pretty easy, and when you're watching this footage, you're like, yeah, what's the big deal? However, there's a lot going on here. To start with, that timer is constantly ticking down. And more importantly, there's a bunch of these tiles here that do all sorts of different things. Some of them break through, some of them give you more points, some of them instantly take a life, but it's very easy to lose control or to land on the wrong tile because your character is constantly bouncing, and bouncing. But more than that, there is a momentum to this game and your character. So, for instance, as you're pushing forward, the more you push forward, the faster your character is going to go. But you can really only control them in the air, and it takes a little bit of time to slow down or to move them left or right. There is some serious challenge to this game. It's super fun, it's really wacky, and I highly recommend it. Every good arcade hidden gems video needs a good beat 'em up, and this is certainly one of those. This is Violent Storm. This was released by Konami in 1993. This game takes place after World War III. You choose from 3 different characters, each with their own fighting style, which helps you dish out some serious punishment to those scums and lowlifes and thugs. Despite this game being set in a post-apocalyptic world, which we've all seen a million times, this game is actually pretty funny and has some great humor, while you're beating the snot out of people. For instance, some of the moves are kind of breakdancing inspired, which is never a bad thing. Also, at one point you pick up party hats and other sort of random stuff. On the train, you end up knocking people out the door and I don't know, there's just a lot of fun with this game, and that's what I really like about it. Plus, the soundtrack is amazing. This game really won me over fairly quickly. Now, if you like brawlers, this is a must. One of my favorite vintage arcade games in the 80s, especially growing up, was Moon Patrol. I love that game as a kid, and I still love playing it today. So imagine my surprise when I discovered Horizon. This is a game by Ireme, and it was released in 1985. and it's definitely similar to Moon Patrol, although there's one big difference. You have 3 planes of movement. It's pretty cool. Now, I'll admit, initially this game kind of threw me for a loop because it doesn't feel like classic Moon Patrol, even though it's the same developer. Those 3 planes really just change up the gameplay in a big way because, yes, it's still a shooter at heart. You're still trying to shoot down the enemies that are flying above you, but you really have to pay attention now to what's going on in the foreground and the background. You'll notice that the enemies will sometimes get behind you and sneak up and try to take you out. Also, there's no jump button in this game, so that's very different than the original game as well. So despite the increased difficulty of this game, I really got into a rhythm of it. You kind of just sort of get into a zone and then you start enjoying this game. If you like classic Moon Patrol, you should definitely check this out. And now we get to the game that wins the award for Best Name. This is Muchi Pork. At least that's how I think you pronounce it, so I'm going with it. As you can tell, this is a bullet hell style shooter from Cave, and it was released in 2007. This was also ported over to the Xbox 360 in Japan. And with a name like Muchi Pork, you're probably wondering just what the heck this is all about. Well, this is often called a cute 'em up. Yes, a cute 'em up, not a shoot 'em up. And that's because of the cute and over-the-top silliness and characters. It's part of its charm. For instance, in the game, you destroy enemies with a lard attack. Of course, right? And then they drop medals that are shaped like pig heads, because why not? Also, there are parachuting pigs, giant robots, did I mention the cute girls, and also an enemy named General Pork Fillet, and so much more. But how does it play? Because that's what's important, right? Well, I mentioned in the beginning that it's made by Cave, and Cave should be familiar if you're fans of this genre because they make some of the best that are out there, and this is no exception. I love this game. I loved it the moment that I fired it up, regardless of whether it's cute or all that. It's just so much fun. It's a great cute 'em up. And now something completely different. This is Prop Cycle by Namco. This game is released in 1996, and it features a pretty unique arcade cabinet. Imagine sitting down on it with bicycle handlebars and pedals. As you can see, this is a flying game, and you don't really see these very often in arcades, especially like this. It actually reminds me of Pilot Wings that Nintendo puts out on their consoles. Gameplay is simple, but pretty tough to master. You have a time limit, and you want to get through a level and pop all of the balloons to get a perfect score. Thankfully, those balloons are placed in a formation designed for efficiency, so if you have control of your craft, you can do pretty well, especially with some practice. Some balloons add points, while others will add more time to your clock. There are 3 unique levels, plus a story mode if you want to increase the difficulty. I found this game to be a nice distraction, especially from all the other typical arcade games you usually find. It's really fun, so definitely check it out.
You're the best!
Next up is a super fun game called Susume Mile Smile. Now this was released in 1995. You play as a chicken trying to rescue a princess while earning rewards. Now, before you judge this game based on the visuals, I want to tell you something. This is probably my favorite game in the entire video. I love this game. So what's the big deal, right? Well, first of all, the gameplay is deceptively simple. That's the key here, because it's easy to play, very tough to master. You move around the outside with your egg, but you can't, with the egg, enter the maze. That's key here. And so what you do is you crack your egg and then unleash your chicks that can then move to scoop up the crystals. However, you're always tethered to the egg that's on the outside, which leaves you vulnerable to enemies. Thankfully, with the push of the button though, you can snap back to safety. One of the reasons why I love this game so much is because I have a bit of history with it. See, I played a version of it back in the 80s called Oil's Well, and I just love that as a kid. But the thing is, this version actually is a nice upgrade. It has better visuals, and it also tweaked the gameplay a bit. In the original, you couldn't move your egg. It wasn't an egg, essentially, but in this version, you can actually move them around and have different entry points. That changes it completely, so I really love that. It's risk versus reward at its finest. This is a great game. Definitely check it out. Oh boy, I don't know how to pronounce this one, but I'm gonna call it Gunbarich. Now this is a game that was released in 2001. Think a mix of Arkanoid and pinball. What? Actually, this game is a spin-off of the Gunbird games. You know those? Those are pretty awesome. And it even features some of the characters from that series. Now the goal of this game is to break all of the bricks, very similar to Arkanoid or Breakout, but you do it with pinball flippers at the bottom. Now what makes this really unique is that you are given some control right after you hit that ball. It really changes the gameplay significantly. As you can see, the visuals are great, very colorful, vibrant, really fun, but don't let that fool you. This game is a serious challenge. It gets crazy after a while. There's a lot of variety in the levels, power-ups to change the gameplay, boss battles, and more. It's a unique take on the classic Breakout, but with pinball-like tweaks. Next up is a vertical shoot 'em up called G-Stream G2020. That's a bit of a mouthful, isn't it? Now this game was released in 2002, and right off the bat, it reminds me of Raiden. You know that game? Love that game. Drunken Master Paul and I play it all the time. This is very similar to that. It has great graphics, nice controls, really good challenge. There's something about these kind of games that I really like. Now, I usually go back and forth between the cave bullet hell style shooters where it's just a screen filled with bullets, and this kind here where it's a little bit more slower and methodical. I like them both, and it's nice to have each one on the list. I would also say that there's just tons and tons of these in the arcades, especially in Japan, that we just never got. And this is one of those where it's really hard to find information about it on the web. I mean, I don't know if anybody really cares about this game. I don't know if anybody plays it, but again, I put it on this list because I thought it was pretty decent. I had a really good time with it, and maybe more people should know about it. All right, and then finally is a game called Fastlane. Now this is an updated version of the classic Sega game called Head On, but this time it's by Konami. This was released in 1987. In this game, you drive a red sports car while trying to avoid these blue trucks, while trying to eat up the level, essentially Pac-Man style. But instead of power pellets, you're eating up the grass or asphalt. So essentially, you need to drive the entire maze in order to advance to the next level. Thankfully, you have some power-ups to help you along the way, including the ability to jump, shoot, attack, or stun the other vehicle. Now, this game looks simple, but let me tell you, it's deceptively difficult, especially when that blue truck is just barreling towards you. That's all it does. It just simply drives around trying to crash into you. Your only control is the ability to hop between lanes and then speed up or slow down, but you're constantly moving. Thankfully, you have those power-ups and hopefully some good timing, and you'll make your way through the game. This is an example of a game where I just want to play it one more time to see if I could get even further. It's really fun. Well, there you go. Those are the 10 games I've been playing on my MAME arcade machine over the last couple weeks. Having a blast, as you can tell. But there are literally thousands of arcade games released over the last, say, 40 years. And I'd love to know what other games I should check out. There are so many to know, so many to play, so many potential hidden gems. Please post a comment down below and let me know. All right, guys, as always, I want to thank you for watching my channel. Thank you for subscribing, and take care. As you can tell, I am loving my MAME arcade cabinet and the upgrades I did recently. I want to do another shout out to Launchbox, specifically Jason, the owner of that company, who helped me greatly with setting up the software and getting this all configured. It's been so much fun to play around with, so really appreciate that. All right, guys, thanks so much for watching.